Welcome back to the Brando and Joe podcast. Our guest today is Andrew Cicchetti. He received his MBA from NYU Stern School of Business, has previous experience at PwC, Pepsi, ClassPass, Stash, and is currently a director of Total Rewards at Capri Holdings, aka my boss. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Welcome.
Long time coming. We've talked about doing a podcast episode for a bit, but I feel like for like the past couple months, and we just didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I talk about knowing you for ever, like
A year and a half.
Yeah, it's only really been a year and a half because there's been like so many phases of the last year and a half for us that it's flown by, and it's also been like it feels like forever. So we probably have been talking about this for a really long time, and it's fun to finally make it happen.
We were doing it last summer, right, Brandon?
Yeah, we've been doing this since first year in the program.
So, yeah, I was doing it when I was an intern.
Yeah, because I think actually one of the it was pretty early on, right after I met Anthony, that he was on.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, yeah, because Anthony was on before. Anthony was on like March or something like that. Yeah.
So I had heard your two voices probably before I knew you, listening to that, and then I probably was interviewing you at some point in my life around that.
Yes.
So I don't know the exact order of those two things, but I at least knew the podcast existed, and whatever else, probably as long as I've known you.
So you're hearing that Joe got the job because of the podcast.
Yes, exactly. Been a listener for a long time, and that's the whole reason that Joe's still employed.
If for our listeners too, Joe and Andrew are together, so I'm the odd one out. They get to record this one together, so it's the first time we've actually had a guest in person with us.
Oh yeah, that is very cool. I didn't even think about that.
Put me on the wall of fame for a little bit in terms of
you'll get a LinkedIn post. That's probably about it. Well, we probably could sit here and talk about our friendship and the fun things we get to do. But the reason we wanted to have you on is because of all the cool positions you had. And we've talked about Total Rewards on this podcast before. I mean, with Anthony, of course, and a couple of people. But especially in the IO field, compensation isn't largely talked about. Mm-hmm. And you not only did like Total Rewards and compensation, but you did external at PwC. And then you went into internal at Pepsi and now Capri, and the roles in the middle. So we thought it'd be a fun conversation to talk to you about A, what it's like working in comp, and B, just like the differences that you saw externally versus internally.
Yeah.
Did you always think that you would like work in a compensation in role, I guess, when you started bachelor's or NYU?
No, I think for me, I always joke about it, and it's funny. I now like working with a PhD in org psych and the whole contingent that I've grown to know now. I consider myself an org psych groupie, but it's when I started, I used to ask this to people all the time. I actually think I asked it to you when I interviewed you, Joe. Is that like I don't know how people find us, and sometimes I wish people found us more in Total Rewards. I was a math major undergrad. I remember interviewing at PwC, and what I loved about it was I think I interviewed with an MBA, a lawyer, a couple other like groups of people, and that was what they were looking for. They wanted different brains to contribute and collab on a lot of this kind of stuff. And I think they liked my logical math brain at the time because it's not like I didn't wake up one day and say I wanted to be a Total Rewards analyst when I was like really talking about making it to the NBA or being a firefighter. Like it's you kind of find your way in because you start to fall in love with it just by being in it. Like I think so many people I talk to have no idea about it when they are interviewing. They like wanted to work at PwC or they wanted to work at Capri or whatever it might be. And you find your way in, and it's just such a cool place to be. And quick if you love it or not. I've loved it for as long as I've been doing this, and I've thought about other like paths to my career, and I almost never I would miss it too much if I got outside of it. because of how much I enjoy it. And especially in the roles that I've been in, the collab with HR, finance, C-suite. I mean, like you really get to touch everything, and you're touching such an important part of employees' lives and what the business spends money on and everything like that. So it's how you find it. I mean, you stumble into it and then you fall in love with it and you realize how amazing it can be sometimes. So it's been fun to talk to the people that I have been, especially in org psych, because I think that we know the sexy ways out of that degree sometimes that people always talk about. And interviewing for that group and whatever it's been, they're like, oh, that sounds cool. Like, and we don't, you do a little bit on it. Like you have like one class on comp.
Yeah, like barely.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, I wish there was more, because
There should be more. Yeah.
we'll talk about it more probably later, but you have to think about it from so many different angles, and from the business, from the employee, from the customer, from whatever it might be. There's so many different avenues that have to be looked into it, and you have to take that into consideration in everything you do. So it's cool. Career wise, like I said, borderline stumbled into this. I loved my team and everything like that when I was interviewing, and didn't know what I was signing up for. But I started in consulting, and it was very broad. I did comp, benefits, equity administration. We were technically a group that sat in tax because like of our connection to different tax returns and different tax elements. They're now like a consulting group of PwC since I've left in advisory. But it just felt like it touched everything. We were in M&A and doing M&A support. We were doing compliance, admin, like we were helping so many businesses with so many different things. And that's what it felt like while I was there. I was getting so much experience in so many different areas of total rewards. Like I said, benefits, equity, comp, whatever it might be, exec comp. But it like consulting always like feels like very, very need based, and you are almost reactionary. You call consultants when you need hands and support and extra bodies and more bandwidth. There's a problem. So you're kind of reacting to, I would say, some of the tougher parts of total rewards. All the time. You don't get to do some of the like stuff that makes you feel good sometimes, even when you're in consulting. But I saw so much and I learned so much because we were reacting to some of the like very difficult technical needs of the clients that we had and everything like that too. So I saw so much in the first few years of my career being there. And then I was doing my MBA at the time, and then the opportunity at Pepsi was my first experience internal, and you get to really see the connection to the business. So much of it was like delivering to partners and everything like that during consulting and that type of stuff. I had business partners in HR, finance, sales, and the Pepsi team was huge. It was a machine of a ton of people globally, and I got to really just focus in on retail comp at the time. I was doing sales comp and frontline comp for like driver, merch, loader in North America, and there were people doing that every. Like there was a COE for exec comp and everything like that. I was just this like one person in this small space, like working on this one thing. And yeah, I was cross collaborating and stuff like that. But there was someone doing corporate. There was someone doing corporate Frito. Like it was crazy. There were people doing benefits like just for Pepsi, and it was wild. The structure was just monstrous. And I learned a lot because it was a company and a total rewards team that was at one of the biggest companies in the world, and it existed for a long period of time. So it was like you got to see the finished product when I was there. I was really more running the play and trying to make the play better that had already been established. And then was there for a little bit, and then got the call to go to ClassPass, which started a little bit of like the startup era of my life. And I got to really own a total rewards function at ClassPass, which was awesome. And we were joking about it on the way over here. It's like being the one-man show at the next phase, like probably of your career, and like being the guy that makes the decisions was, I really felt like I needed to have like confidence to take that on. But I had good experience and it worked out. And I showed up at a fitness company like a month before COVID happened, which was like so many curveballs over the course of the 2 years I was there. But it was, again, another fun situation that I learned a lot at. And then similar role at Stash. And then when the time came to talk to Capri, it was just so cool to end up there and do what I'm doing now. And it's probably Capri somewhere probably in between the two, where ClassPass and Stash were like building the function and trying to get ready for like the next phase of business, like essentially, like I said, one-man team at both of those places. To come here where it's not Pepsi, where there's a ton of people, it's, I don't know, our team is 20-ish with Workday and People Analytics, and so it's somewhere in between the two. But it's been fun to collab with the group and everything else, and it's been a wild 18 months in terms of my
year and a half now.
Yeah, a little. It's getting close to 2. I can't really say like a year and a half now. Like 2, it's gonna be 2 in almost February. So it's getting close. But yeah, cool. It's been a fun ride, and I'm really happy with where I've ended up and the space I've been in as a result.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. I feel like I can kind of see the map of how you got to where you are. And one of the key things that I heard there that I wanted to kind of pull out and ask a question on was about your exposure in the comp area. So I feel like you kind of mentioned this throughout, how like when you're in comp, you have exposure to so many parts of the business and you're working with so many different individuals across the business, like ranging on the scale of like how important they might be. Was that something that might have helped you throughout your career, like specifically in that maybe like PwC role where you're going all the way speaking to C-suite executives and like preparing information for them? Like, is that something you've seen that's been beneficial and kind of helped you in when you got to Capri now?
Yeah, I mean, the role that I had, I think at Pepsi, like I think taught me like the backbones to like take me to be what I was in the last 2 roles, and then into now. But then at ClassPass, I mean, I learned so much from just being in the room with executives and different teams. I'll talk a little bit about this like from a design perspective later, when like in the roles and how it works. But I remember being in rooms like when we were like building commission plans, and like it was like the head of sales, the head of pricing and inventory, like so many different teams in this room, like collaborating. And it really made me realize that you have to really be invested in the business and the product that you're working with, and to be able to do this role well. If you don't feel connected to it, and you don't love the product, and you don't love what they're doing, it's really hard to do it right. I really saw that at ClassPass. Was like I loved. I blew at Pepsi. I only drank Pepsi forever, and I pretty much still do. But it really resonated in ClassPass when like you just cared so much about getting this thing to the next level. And I like I said, I spent so much time with the business really learning what was happening, because I had to know how important it was to be in a certain zip code for a gym, or how many scheduling hours they were going to give us, or whatever it might be, to impact what I was doing. And it led me to now, where we've done a lot of design and we've done a lot of things to be able to ask the right questions with leaders and with executives on what they're trying to get out of this. And like I said, I was joking. Joe and I have been talking a lot about in the past like couple of weeks about like delivering to executives. And I remember the CFO at ClassPass, like I was delivering something to him, to like a model or something to get ready for a review or whatever it was. I showed up and he's like, "This is a really great spreadsheet." He's like, "But like, and I'm really happy with like the work you did, but it looks terrible." Like, and it was just like, he started ripping me apart for formatting and how he wanted it to look. And I took so much of that with me, because I was like, I'm never going into another meeting like with anybody without like the presence of knowing that this is going to be potentially passed to a board or passed to the business or pulled up on a screen later and those types of things. So like you remember little experiences like that because you've had that exposure, and total rewards touches everything. There's comp committees at the board level. You have to be prepared to talk to C-suite board members, whatever it might be. And like I said, I got a really good path to get here and still have that exposure now. And it's through talking to executives and talking to so many points of the business and having all those touch points. It's crazy. I mean, you don't find fields like that. You sometimes, like when you say you want to be in sales or you say you want to be, I don't know, in design at Capri or whatever it is, they don't get to be as connected to so many areas like we do. And it makes you, like I said, be so invested in the business and so invested in what you're working on and the product that you get obsessed. I mean, you just want to be able to make something that helps the business do what they're trying to do better and provide with your employees. It's such a cool sweet spot to be able to help everybody. And like I said, so much of that comes from that level of connection that you need to have to the executives and to the company and to everybody in the business. So
it's the best part about the job family of like Total Rewards. Like you said, you just get to work with all the different teams, and you're not just like, oh, I just need to sell this part and do my job, or I just need to make this thing, or run the spreadsheet. But like, yeah, you care how the business is doing, which is weird to say because like, hopefully if you work in a company, you do care, but like sometimes you're siloed and you're like, no, I'm just doing my job and like, hopefully everything works out. But like in Total Rewards, like you do work with every single part. How would you say, it might be hard to put into like small conversation with the time we have. How would you say someone could prepare for a role as a compensation analyst or in Total Rewards? Because it comes part with analytic skills, but part of it comes with that like communication piece and be able to like storytell, as like we say in IO.
yeah, and it's, I don't know, we talk about this, like the fundamentals of compensation. If you really wanted, like if there was a course on it, I think people would learn the fundamentals on like how to benchmark, how to do this kind of stuff very quick. Like it's like the backbone of like benchmarking is like there's market data out there, you match it to like what your job is and you make it be how it matches the roles that you're looking at. Like that in concept is like 2 sentences that I could probably teach to a few people very quickly. But then it's taking those numbers and like you said, being able to story tell to the business like how this fits into your org structure. How's it going to impact compression to the roles above you and the roles below you? What can we afford? Like what are the other components of the compensation package that matter? It's not all base salary. It's what benefits we have, what exposure they're going to have, what equity plans that some roles might have or might not have, like long-term, short-term. There's so many different pieces to it. So like just taking a number and like sending an email is not like going to, yeah, it's being able to help make the right decisions. And like you're going to get put in situations that like you have to back up that data, and you learn that it's not just sending it across. It's like, hey, can we talk about this and see how this fits into the greater scheme of things? Because there's a lot of times that I send comp data to teams, it's so different than what they're already paying. So you want to understand their story of how they got to where the people is. Was it a performance thing? Were they junior? Were they senior? And we brought them in like higher than the role because we thought they were going to get to the next level or something like that. So there's the storytelling comes just from like using data and seeing how it fits into a company, into the org and everything else. And that really comes with experience. I mean, like I think about all the time how I would set somebody up for that. And it's like, how would you like, good, you pulled the data. Like, how would you convince me if I told you that the person was making 70 and you pulled it at 8? Like, yeah, you just have to be ready to be able to back up what you're saying and see how it fits in. It just comes with experience. And I probably wasn't good at it a few years ago. And now I do it. Yeah. It comes to time. So I think just being able to put yourself in situations like that, I think is going to help. So it does take time. But like I said, the fundamentals are, I don't know, anybody with like analytical mind can probably like put the numbers on paper and figure it out. It's a little bit of the combo, which I think makes the role cool. You got to be able to maybe have both sides of it.
Yep. That's where the IO piece comes into comp too, like the analytical side. And that's probably why some IOs end up in comp. And this episode is definitely Joe trying to get more IO people into comp for sure. But it's true though. I feel like the analytical piece of comp is like where IO comes in, and being able to use that data and storytell. It's all really important. When you were mentioning there, Andrew, about the like looking at maybe a department and checking it out in comparison to the benchmarks of what people might be getting paid, could you give us maybe like an example, not like a real example, but like how you would handle a situation where you notice that there might be like a disparity in like maybe the benchmarking and like where a department's actually paying their employees?
Yeah, we've had so many situations that have come up, like I'm going to say like post 2020, that like have put companies in situations where um like structure and everything that people had built over time to like get to 2020 changed. I mean, people made salary cuts to be able to afford having their staff on like still around. So with inflation and with so many other things that are out there, I hate using inflation in comp. So like I could say it, but like with other like factors, macro factors that are out there, like salaries probably have gone up for like a lot of the high performers of state companies and whatever else. But like if you like cut your salaries or whatever it was during 2020, you almost haven't been able to keep up with like standard compensation budgets. So
Right.
people have had to invest and try to catch up with the world that we're living in, and that's a major investment. I mean, when it was always a joke that like 3% was kind of always the thing that like people had in their budgets for like 100 years, because that was just what it was. And then like some people were able to do 5, some people were able to do 2, but then like COVID happens, people make changes, and then all of a sudden, you got to catch up. And I've been in probably more situations than I could imagine in the last 4 years because of situations like that. I mean, there were also situations where people did large rifts and they cut off potentially people that were lower performers relative to higher performers in situation. And what do your higher performers do? A lot of times they get paid more. So all of a sudden you had this like good spread across a band, and you cut the people that were at the bottom end of the salary band and kept the people at the top, which moved the market in terms of like everybody that kept their people on were all above the midpoint that previously existed. So it's things like that that have happened in the last 4 years that have probably made it happen more than I would like to. You would love to just pull market data and end up being like, yeah, I pulled 80. This person makes 80. Like, we're good. See ya. But there have been so many storylines in the past year that have like led us to be chasing, or people have been higher or lower, and you want to find out why. You want to find out if they are a high performer. Have they been here for a long period of time? Did they come from another place that they were such a big they were such a need to the business that we had to overpay? Like there it really dives into a little bit of the story of how we got here. Sometimes that's tough for the business to talk about because sometimes they don't even know the decisions that have been made to get to the place that they're at. But you want to find out, and if you can't, a lot of times what happens is you can't fix it in the moment. Like you might not have the money, or you might not have the ability to make the fix in time. So you're trying to understand the backstory and the history to build the plan to fix it futuristically. And look, things happen where you got to make a move at the in the moment, or you lose somebody. So you got to make the decision on if that investment is worth it in the moment. But in a lot of situations, if you're proactive about it, you can start to build the plan to figure out how to get them back to where you want to be. And that's where a lot of the conversation and a lot of the battle is with teams, is like, let's get them to slow down for a second and think about it, and realize that like writing a check for X amount of dollars might not always be the solution to this in the moment. And it's trying to figure out like, okay, like what does this mean? Because like I said, we talked about this a little bit and how it affects everything a few minutes ago, is that you move somebody up higher than everybody else, that's going to have impact on the roles above, the roles below, and you got to be ready for that. It's not just this like knee jerk reaction. I got to write a check for $20K to this person. So really what I'm trying to do is slow them down, think about it, and like I said, hopefully try to build a plan to fix it that isn't knee jerk. And sometimes we end up with the knee jerk reaction because we have to, and that's fine. But I at least want to have the conversation to, like I said, lay out the other alternatives. Because like I said, the first reaction from the business a lot of times is like, write the check. And that's not always the longer solution, because I joke with Joe all the time, like, yeah, we wrote the check 6 months ago, and now like when we get to deal with the rest of the organization or that person again, like, was it enough, and how are we going to fix the other 10 people that this impacted? And you don't want to be in those situations, and you try not to say, haha, I told you so, ever, right? Obviously, but it happens a lot because you have to move quick sometimes, and it's tough.
You got to find, it's like kind of like the motivation piece from IO. Try to find like where the data lies and like where like the it's like the fine line of trying to build something.
Is this because the person thinks they're doing more? Is it because that like then what their role is? Do they feel like they're misleveled? Is money the only thing that motivates them, and that's just what they're going after? Like you want to dig into a little bit deeper into what's behind the ask, and sometimes it's not what it seems. And I think, like you were saying, if you take the time to get the story, you might be like, wait a minute, this isn't accomplished. Like this is maybe something else, and it might be saved. I don't know. We talk about this. I mean, like that's
probably be its own episode.
Yeah, exactly. Engagement surveys and the responses from those, like, there's a lot of times a good comp engagement survey score is like 50% because somebody's happy and someone's not, like in the company with their compensation. And so, and how you fix that sometimes is not necessarily comp. I mean, there's so much more to, or base salaries for that. There are so many other ways that matter. Like the two things in total rewards that I've told everybody, like, I've never seen any place like Capri where so many people like want to be in fashion. Like they will do anything to be at a fashion company because they want to be in the industry, and that's how they want to get in. And so, and what they care about so much is the connection to the product and clothing allowances or sample sales or whatever it might be. At ClassPass, it was a different thing. It was like, obviously money's important at both of those places, but for ClassPass, I remember this one pager that we had on all the perks that we had, and it was free ClassPass at the top and different elements of like city bikes and being outside and unlimited vacation at the time and all that kind of stuff. Like you were trying to find the people that fit the culture and the product. And that was like on the front page, and I'll never forget it. Cause I was like, I can't wait to get in there and say that this one page is sweet for recruiting, because like it sold me. I was an active guy. I want to be in an active company, and I believe in it. So, and don't get me wrong, like money was a part of my decision, but I remember that one pager and like being like, yeah, I want free ClassPass. And that was what got me there. Yeah. I remember being at Capri and I was like, yeah, like I'm into discounts. So it's cool from that perspective of like, there's so much more to it than salary too. And recruiting and in the moment, that sometimes the answer is just not writing the check.
Yeah, no, it's a huge part of it. Yeah, you're right. It's not just like the number that comes across the screen on the salary.
Yeah. I mean, we have, I don't know, like we have the benefit of doing clothing allowance at the company. Like the best days at the company are when bosses come.
Yeah.
And people like do like the many fashion shows and like their teams and whatever for like what products they got and if they like them and whatever else. Like, I don't know. That's the first time I've ever experienced that. And that's a sweet selling point to people on why they want to work there. And that should be factored into the conversations that you have with people when they come in and say, I want more money. Like, you should also understand a lot of the other motivations out there for wanting to be here and what the role means and your connection to the product. And I don't know, I struggle with it because I loved all the companies that I worked at and wanting to be a part of it. But I'm probably a sucker for total rewards being more than just about money too. So
no, yeah, I couldn't agree more on the motivation piece behind it. I see that we're slowly running out of time, so we're probably get to our last question of our general advice. For someone who's starting their career, whether external or internal, what do you think is one bit of advice you would give to them and succeeding throughout their professional life?
I mean, I laugh at how good you guys are at networking.
It's all branded.
Yeah,
No,
yeah. It's like I don't know. I show up at Disrupt HR before I hired you back, and you guys are there. Just like I'm trying to network myself, and then you guys are just rock stars at it. And
Thank you.
I think I think that's got to help so much in these situations to be able to do things like this and get out there and just talk to people and figure out what's out there. I think it's so important. I think within companies and whatnot, I think internal mobility is also one of the coolest things about being at companies. It's tough to get your start sometimes. I think, like I said, I lucked out and fell into the lap of a Total Rewards consulting group and found what I love to do. I don't know if everybody's going to be as lucky as that, but I think when you get the opportunities, especially, and you can get in and see what's out there, I think companies want to keep you. And once you learn about the business and those types of things, I think networking within is important. I spent so much time at PwC playing softball and going to events and doing things that like set me up to meet more people and be thought about. I mean, like that's so much a part of it, I think, out there that and like I said, you guys and your crew that I've met throughout like the years do such a good job at that. And like there's a reason that when I go to like hire interns, it's because I know the people that I've met at these networking things and whatever else, and it's so easy for me to be like, yeah, let's talk about you coming on board too. I wish I did that better at the time. I think I did okay. It's done fine, but I think that's the big thing. And also when you start, like, don't be afraid to explore, set up coffee time, learn the business, because you might end up in other areas too, especially like if you don't fall in love with Total Rewards in the first 5 seconds like I did. You want to meet new people and see what else is out there. And sometimes it's right in front of your face. So I think that would be my big thing to people. And yeah, like I said, you guys are too good at it that I'm preaching to the choir with you guys, I think.
I like the piece that you added there about the internal mobility. I think that sometimes people think about networking to get a job and then like they get the job and then it like they think the buck stops there and they're like, okay, I'm good. But I think that level of once you get in role, like building your network within your role is big too, because I mean, specifically if you're in like an HR function too, like you become somebody that someone can rely on. And like whether you're in comp or like in my case, like in L&D, like someone could look at you and like maybe see you as a subject matter expert and like pick your brain about things, and that grows your network too. And so it's I definitely like that. I think people who are starting out their careers can definitely hear that and grow from that, Andrew. I think that's a big piece too.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. Joe and I were just joking about how we wear so many different hats besides Total Rewards sometimes, like finance, whatever it might be. Like you'll find your ways into things like inside the companies that you're in that aren't in your job description when you sign up. And being able to like I still get phone calls for things that like I said are not in my job description because it's just like worked out that I've gotten exposure to it and learned and met the right people, and it's been a blast to do and maybe even do something different. It makes it more exciting too. So even the stuff within your own role too. I mean, like you keep your role and still learn and do some other stuff too. There's always hands needed in any part of the suite. So even once you found like I think what you do, there's no problem with like expanding the bullets on your job description a little bit sometimes to take on some more because you've become that person that people could trust, like you said, and it gets some more exposure to other things to see if you like something more. I haven't found it yet, but maybe there'll be a day. I don't know.
I'm going to start doing a bad job at my job so I don't have to do other things besides my job.
No one can ask Joe for help anymore.
Joe's always trying to find a leap.
But no, that's perfect. It's a good piece of advice. it's a usual piece of advice that we get, like of the networking. I like the internal mobility part though too, Brandon, because it's right. Like sometimes you just get into the job and it's like, you're like, oh, now I could stop. But like, it is helpful to expand your internal network at your job and find out what else is out there, because like maybe you can do a different part of your job. And it's something I remember at my first job that they were like, oh, maybe you'll find something different at this company at like a different role or a different like job family. I was like, I didn't even realize that was a thing. Like I thought this is my job and like maybe I get a promotion here, but like I can move like horizontally to like the profile. So you kind of just learn.
Joe only wanted one job family. It was Andrew and Anthony.
Joe wasn't
Right,
seeing anything else other than compensation at Capri.
vision.
Yeah,
But thank you, Andrew, for chatting with us.
no problem. It was a blast. I mean, it's like I said, fun to talk about, and sometimes I mean, I could talk about it all day. We could have stayed on the phone forever. Like it's such a nerdy thing to enjoy what you do sometimes. And like I said, I hope more people find it because it's a cool space to be in.
We gotta get both you and Anthony on here and do it in person, and we have to do that before this podcast ends.
Anthony and I want to host hot ones for you guys and talk about your favorite moments of the podcast.
That would be fun.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, also.
Like, can I bring a microphone to Buffalo Wild Wings?
It's got
people do podcasts at like different events all the time.
Maybe Brandon, we'll order like the ones you could like clip onto the shirt.
Yeah, we'll just walk in. The non-budget budget that we have for this podcast is all gonna just be spent on our last episode.
Yes. I'll donate to that.
No, but I do appreciate you coming on here, Andrew. We've been talking about this for, it feels like months now. Like I before even Joe was back at Capri, we were talking about doing this. So I'm really happy we made this happen. And now Joe, maybe you found some creative ways to not do your job and do your job.
Yeah. I hope I motivated him to find ways to do his job. But if he doesn't do his job too, that's fine too.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. We both really appreciate you coming on here.
Awesome. No, it was a blast. So thanks for having me.